All right, moving right along. Our next guest is a Hall of Fame podcaster. I often talk about him as one of the most talented people to work in the podcasting industry. He runs the School of Podcasting. He also works with Podpage and hosts, I don't know, 12, 14, 17, 20. I can't keep track. Ask the Podcast Coach Saturday mornings, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Also look for the School of Podcasting. Those are the two big ones, but he's got a whole bunch of different podcasts. He's helped more podcasters than, I could imagine start and grow and monetize. His book is called Profit from Your Podcast. Right here, he is the great Dave Jackson. Dave, Hall of Fame podcaster, never gets old, does it?
The thing is, though, like I try to use that at like the grocery store.
It doesn't. You still have to pay.
Yeah, I'm like, all right. But yeah,
don't you know
right.
who I am?
It's like, and that thing's heavy to lug around. I'm like, that's well, I'll try.
It doesn't get you a table at the trending restaurant.
No, nothing. No groupies, nothing. So, but I'll take it.
That's why you had to learn to play guitar. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And I'm still humbled by that. And so it's and my business coach was like, why don't you say that you're in the Hall of Fame in your podcast? And I'm like, he's like, dude, how many people can say that? And I'm like, well, at the time it was like, I don't know, 14. He's like, you need to say that in every show you do. And I was like, okay.
So, what's interesting is I talked to you when the book first came out. I think it was in summer or fall of 2020 when the book came out. And the story continues because after working for Libsyn for quite a while, your podcast and your podcasting skills and knowledge and everything really led you to a totally new opportunity. I don't know whether you saw it coming or not, but your podcasting prowess definitely played a role. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Podpage and how being a podcaster makes it, the perfect fit for a job like that.
Well, that's the thing. Your podcast becomes your resume. And so at Podpage, I'm the head of podcasting. So I am doing things like I send out a newsletter. We're now offering live support calls. So if you're just stuck on something, instead of doing the whole like, what browser are you using? And then I say this, and then you say like, hey, let's just hop on a Zoom call for 15 minutes and get this taken care of. So I'm doing that. We're doing things for our elite members that can actually now, if they just want not so much Podpage support, but like help me with my podcast, that's another thing I'm doing. And that's what I love. I love to coach people. So between that and we're still working on, we're going to launch kind of a Podpage related podcast because, well, that makes sense. Right. And then I'll be doing videos soon for our new YouTube channel. So for me, and I always say there was nothing wrong with Libsyn. I was just, everything I just mentioned, I was doing less and less and less of. And so there's nothing wrong with Libsyn. This just sounded better. And back in 2020, I actually got hired by Brendan, the guy that the owner and main coder, and he wanted my opinion on what should we make this thing do? I have an idea. So it's been kind of fun because over the years, I have not been shy to go, oh, that's really cool. Oh, I'm not going to use that. And I've always just kind of been giving him feedback. And it just so happened that he happened to be at a time, he sent me a video. He was like, how's everything going at Libsyn? And it wasn't that I hated my job. He said, I've got this position over here, and everything he said about it, I was like, ooh, I want to do that. And so, after 8 years at Libsyn, I came over to Podpage, and it's still a lot of fun. I'm working with podcasters now directly, which I love, and I'm getting a whole different skill set. I'm learning much more about websites now, as you might imagine. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Ross and Dave, it just occurred to me. I now remember, we did meet at PodFest back in 2020 because I switched to Libsyn. Sorry, Blueberry, but like at our conversation, it had convinced me to move over to Libsyn. So fantastic podcasting platform. I love them. They've been great to me and such. Hopefully you didn't leave because they turned terrible.
No, they're not at all.
Good.
I always tell people, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with Libsyn. I say it's the difference between chocolate ice cream and cookies and cream. Like for me, chocolate is great, but cookies and cream, I will pull over and walk a mile to get some. So that's my favorite.
I won't disagree with you on that one. There.
Yeah.
Cookies and cream. Come on now. But I would like to know, like, when you went to put this together, obviously having this vast experience in podcasting, how were you able to, I don't know, distill all that information into a single book? And what was that whole process like? Did it take like years for you to put it together? Or was this something like you woke up, did it one day and was done?
Well, I had written a book called More Podcast Money, was like the very first version of this book. Okay. And then a publisher reached out because I realized I needed to rewrite it. And I started to do that. And this publisher reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in writing a book about podcast monetization? I was like, well, funny you should ask. I'm doing that right now. But even the original book, I remember I handed it into my first editor and they said, oh, this is great. Which one of these books did you want to write? And I go, no, that's the book. And he's like, no, You've got a planning your podcast book. You've got to grow your podcast book. You got this one on monetization. And I'm like, well, everybody wants to make money. Let's do that one. And so that's where I just kind of whittled it down. And then when I was writing the current version, Profit from Your Podcast, it's just a matter of like, okay, that's the main heading. Now let's answer that question. What are you going to talk about? So there are like 7 different ways you can make money with a podcast, and then some insights to that. So it's just a matter of kind of figuring out what I'm not going to talk about. Yeah. So there's still, the first chapter is a hint that you can't monetize a podcast that's not any good, or we should say it's harder to monetize a show. So right. That's kind of where I went with that. But it was fun. My favorite part is I think in the first page, the preface or whatever, and I say, you never know what could happen in 2020. And people are like, I should have bought a lottery ticket. Because 2020 was a little different of a year.
It certainly was, for sure. So what did you end up doing with those extra like sections that you didn't have? Did you just throw them out, or do you have that kind of hanging on the back burner to hopefully release one day?
Yeah, I still have it. And it's one of those things where, especially now, I mean, that was probably 10 years ago, that I thought about the other day. I was like, I need to put those out in some form of a book. And I think this time I'll probably stick to self-publishing. Nothing against the publisher that helped me out, but I've seen both sides of the fence, and I'm a little more of a control freak. The fact that I can just update it and send it to Amazon, I'm good to go. But yeah, that's definitely in the works.
Super cool. It's very cool to be able to chat with you. Hall of Famer. You need to say it from now on. That's it. It's not just Dave Jackson. It's Hall of Famer Dave Jackson. So we would like for you to kind of push your book one more time here, because people need to vote for this inside the virtual book fair over at dalelinks.com/vote. So tell us real briefly again about your book here, Dave.
Yeah, if you're a podcaster and you're thinking, hey, I'm not making any money at this, and you actually want to make money with this, definitely check it out, Profit from Your Podcast. And the other reason why you should vote for it is it's honest. It's actual, here's what this person did, here's what they made kind of stuff. It's not one of these books where I'm going to say, for 3 easy payments, you can do, there's none of that nonsense going on. I'm not selling hope for 3 easy payments. In fact, at times I explain to people, like, here's a stat you're not going to like, but it's the truth. So that's why you should vote for it. It's the truth.
Before we let you go, give us one quick tip that anybody, whether they're starting out or they're a veteran podcaster, should be doing or could be doing to increase the chance that they're monetizing.
Know who your audience is, because in the end, when you make money with a podcast, it's your audience is pulling out a credit card. Do you want them to give it to a sponsor who's going to give you a little bit of that, or do you want them to give it to you where you make more of that? But nonetheless, you have to know who your audience is, because it's their credit card that's going to be, the money that's coming your way. So the better you know your audience, the better you can give them what they want. The more you give them what they want, the more likely they are to go, hey, thanks for that. Here's some money.
That's Dave Jackson. He's a Hall of Fame podcaster. He is at the School of Podcasting pod page, and you can find his podcast everywhere. Thanks, Dave, for spending some time with us.
Oh, thanks, guys. This is awesome.